Malia's laughing at me. I'm gonna make sure it didn't reverse and was looking at you guys. What was I just gonna tell you? Oh, so they're fighting for these suffrage rights. Watch this. Guess what happens in the United States of America? They are fighting for 25, 30 years. And then we get to the Reconstruction Amendments and men's suffrage is the 15th Amendment in the United States of America. All male suffrage. Guess what? It said universal suffrage, men and women, before, and they changed it at the last minute because they were afraid that it couldn't get it to pass. So they took women out, and it gave black men the vote, but it took away the language for the women to have the right to vote. So these guys were fighting for like 25 years and were right there. And then the 15th Amendment passes, but it says only all male suffrage. And they took women out at the last minute. I don't know how they didn't like storm the Capitol then. Go ahead. Stanton wrote the Declaration of Sentiments, modeled after the Declaration of Independence, stating all men and women were created equal. Every country had somebody that did it, right? Vindication of the Rights of Women, Wollstonecraft, the Citizen Rights of Women and the Citizen in France, the Gouges. Everybody wrote one. Go ahead. So women's rights. What century? 19th century, specifically close to the middle of the 19th century. In 1857, divorce was legalized in Britain and in France in 1884. Catholic countries like Spain and Italy did not permit divorce. How come? Why? Catholic Church. The Pope decides. The Pope decides. Everything is all decided by the Pope. Go ahead. The women's rights movement had many members but enjoyed few successes. By 1900, no major countries allowed women to vote. By 1900, still no major countries allowed women to vote. There's a famous one. I don't know if they're going to talk about Emily Davison. Davison, I think it is. It's not Davidson. It's Davison in England. Do you remember what happens? Emily Davison is a suffragette. By the way, in the United States of America, we're called suffragist. Suffragist. If you hear the word suffragette, that's England. She jumped in front of the king's horse at a race to demand and to ask for rights to vote. She made this huge spectacle at a famous horse race in England, and the king's horse was racing, and she jumped out in front of the horse. What do you think happened? She died. It's a horse. It's a horse. She died. She died very dead, died. She died. And then hundreds of thousands of people marched in her funeral, and shortly thereafter they got the right to vote. So there you go. All we have to do is just one of us die when we have to protest for something, and then it's all good.
Buy a horse.
Yeah, buy a horse. Which Catherine did not. Catherine the Great didn't die. She didn't have sex with the horse. And she didn't die by having sex with the horse. We didn't talk about this?
We did.
Oh, why did they do that to like Catherine the Great or Hatshepsut or Cleopatra? To disparage their legacies. Go ahead. In the 1780s, the abolitionist movement to end slavery began by blending Enlightenment thought with principles of Christianity. The Amish were big Underground Railroad people. There's not a railroad under the ground. Okay? That's not what it means. There's no like subway for former slaves. It's just called the Underground Railroad. It's not really underground, and it's not even a railroad. What are they doing? You thought it. You thought it.
No, okay. There's no, okay, see what happened was I did it like middle school. And then I was like informed that was inaccurate. So,
It is inaccurate.
yeah. I'm
Good
now.
for your teacher or whoever informed you.
It was my friend.
Was it
My
Paula?
teacher was very helpful.
Did she tell you? Yeah, that's good.
What did I do?
No, we're talking about you, not to you. Okay, so abolitionist. Again, same thing. So put it down, please. 1807 and 1808, I think it's England and then the USA, abolishes the slave trade. 1807 and 1808 abolishes the slave trade, which is not abolishing slavery. Abolishing slavery happens with us in 1863 with the Emancipation Proclamation, which is only in the South, the people that are in rebellion to the Union. And then the 13th Amendment, put it down if you haven't, is the abolition of slavery in the U.S., and that's not until 1865. So what's that mean that we abolished the slave trade? Can you show me the middle passage, Paula? Of triangle trade? Nope. Nope. What's the middle passage, guys? From Africa to the Americas, especially Brazil and the Caribbean. The middle passage. So the trade was abolished. FYI, guess who kept doing it? Brazil. Brazil kept doing it. How did they do that then? Pirates. Pirates started doing it. Right? Pirates are what? Anything you can make money. So if that means bringing slaves, then okay. Anything to be able to make money. Go ahead. Or is this it? No. William Wilberforce. There's a college in Ohio called Wilberforce University. In 1807, a parliament passed a law ending involvement in the slave trade. The U.S. in 1808, France in 1814, Netherlands in 1817, Spain in 1845, and Brazil not until 1888. Put them down. Brazil not until 1888. 888. Of course Brazil kept going. Why? Say one word. Sugar. Sugar, 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 sugar. 1888. Go ahead. The British Navy enforced the end of the slave trade, but illegal trade continued for years. Pirates did it. Go ahead. Okay. Slavery ended in Haiti when their independence was established by a slave rebellion in 1804. Put them down. They're the only ones that ever did it. Did what? Successful slave rebellion and took over the country. Got their country back. From whom? Who did they get the country back from? The French. And FYI, guess what happens in 1804? Remember our first billion? What happens in 1804? Or 1803? One of them. Napoleon crowns himself king, right? He crowns himself emperor in 1803 or 1804. I don't remember which one it is. But meanwhile, guess what was happening over in Haiti? They were like, hurry, hurry, the French are busy taking over all of Europe. So what can we do? Quick, have a rebellion. Take it all over, take it all over, take it all over. By the way, there was some disease that was native in Haiti that when more French soldiers came, they all got this disease and died. I don't remember what it was.
It was
Yellow fever or malaria or something. Something, and it killed the British. The French. It killed the French soldiers who would come. And then there's like this really famous picture. I tried to find it for this PowerPoint that has the French officers hanged all over. Haiti's very mountainous. Do you know islands are mountains in the ocean? That below them is really, really mountainous. Does everybody know that's what islands are? And so they're normally very mountainous. Islands are mountainous. And it shows, one of the paintings shows literally a big side of a mountain, but all over it you see these gibbets. This is called a gibbet that they hanged people of. When you guys play hangman, you draw a gibbet. That's what you're drawing. And they have these people hanged all over the place. It's not hung. Your laundry is hung. Hanged is the past tense for people that are dead from hanging. Go ahead. Slavery was banned in the British Empire in 33, the U.S. in 65, and Brazil in 88. 33, the British had already banned it. Go ahead. And again, Amish, Pennsylvania Dutch, Protestants are very anti-slavery. Economic, political, and social inequalities remain for former slaves for years to come. We theoretically, we're going to give them, how many acres? 50 acres and a mule? What was it? 100 acres and a mule? We were going to give them something, 40 acres. 40 acres and a mule. 40 acres and a mule, and then at the last minute, we're like, nah, you're good. So then, slavery, 1863 Emancipation Proclamation, 1865 Emancipation Proclamation. Yay! We're free! Yay! Can we just stay here for a few more days until we figure out what to do? What happened? They had nowhere to go. They had no land. They had no place to live. They literally what? After slavery, guess what people did? They stayed in the same little shanty houses that they lived in before and picked the same cotton they picked before because they had nowhere to go. And if they left this guy, right, when they got to that guy, what'd he say? Would he take him? Sure, you can work here, but what? Just like the rest of them, we should still be basically enslaved. Later, it's going to be a system called sharecropping. Sharecropping, slavery by another name. It's debt peonage. Do you remember that? Where it keeps you in perpetual debt. It's still slavery, basically. Go ahead. Abolition movement ended the reliance on slavery and the slave trade and set the stage for later equality movements in the 20th century. So here's the very most horrible part about this. Remember how we talked about every region that we have to talk about in this class? Africa is one of them. And so we know Mansa Musa, Mali, Muslim, gold, right? We know about that. But then after that, we have, it's in alphabetical order, Ghana, Mali, Songhai. So we have these great empires. But then after that, we have the slave trade. Guess what happens after the slave trade ends? 1884, 1885, the Berlin Conference and the scramble for Africa. So instead, all the Europeans go rushing into Africa, take over all of Africa, and start raping, robbing, and pillaging the resources. Who does the pillaging? Who does the taking of the resources? It's the African people. All of the Europeans standing there with their guns or with their swords, but who's in Potosi silver mines? The Native Americans, right? They literally re-enslave Africans after the scramble for Africa, but now where? In their own continent. On their own freaking continent. Watch this. Put it down if you don't know. 1870, 10% of Africa has been colonized. 1870, 10%. 1884, 1885 is a Berlin Conference in Germany. All of the European powers divide up all of Africa. Guess who's not allowed to be there? Africans. Africans are not allowed to be there. No black people in sight. They drew the lines that are on that map. They drew those lines in 1884, 85. Do those lines still exist today? 1890, what percent is colonized? 90. 90% is colonized. The only two places?
Libya.
Not Libya.
Liberia.
Liberia.
Ethiopia.
And Ethiopia. Ethiopia because, did we talk about it? Yeah, the black folks had guns. The Africans had guns. So the Ethiopians that also had guns defeated the Italians. And in Liberia, it was a U.S. controlled place. That's where we were going to send Africans back to Africa. What's that mean? Back. Why am I quoting it? Because they weren't from Africa. They were born literally here. They're like, wait, send me back where? I don't know anybody in Africa. Don't send me to Africa. I don't know anybody.
What you just say?
By 1890. So, in just 20 years, because of the scramble for Africa, you can write it down if you don't, that's called the scramble for Africa. We're obviously going to talk about it soon. The scramble for Africa in just 20 or 30 years went from not very many people colonized to 90% colonized. It's terrible. Go ahead. Never given Africans a break. Jews enjoyed increased rights as liberal change unleashed by the Enlightenment swept through Europe in the mid-1800s. Jews are hoping to have some sort of relief. Who remembers the Black Death? What do? We blame the Jews. So they poisoned their wells. We burned an entire town, minimum, an entire town, killed them by burning. People all over the place were blamed. That continues for all of time. So finally, some sort of liberal rights. It's going to be short-lived, obviously, because we're going to have Nazi Germany very soon. It's going to be short-lived. Go ahead. Conservative and extremist nationalist politicians used anti-Semitism to create scapegoats and immobilize supports. Start blaming the Jews. 19th century, start blaming the Jews for everything. These things are called pogroms. Put it down. I'm not saying programs. I'm saying pogroms. P-O-G-R-O-M-S. Pogroms are anti-Jewish actions. Putting people in ghettos, making them wear the Star of David, sumptuary laws. Do you remember these words, sumptuary laws? It means what you can or cannot wear, that you have to wear a Star of David. Oh, I have it here. It says pogroms. And they start attacking Jews. Go ahead. Okay, so Zionism, famous. That man's name is Theodor Herzl. You have to know him. Theodor Herzl, it's Theodor. I don't think there's an E on it, honestly. I don't think there's an E on his name. Herzl, Herzl. Oh, look, I'm gone. Here I am. Theodor Herzl. Theodor Herzl, it is called Zionism. Zionism. Zionism is the desire by Jews to have a homeland. They want a homeland ever since what? 2,000 years ago. What's it called? The Jewish diaspora. What's the only other one you have to know in this class? The African diaspora, which is what? The slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade. Right? So the Jewish diaspora, they want the Jewish diaspora to end. They believe it's going to end when they get to have a country of their own. Guess where they considered having this country? North Dakota? Argentina? North Dakota! Probably all the Jews are like, you kidding me? Why would we go there? There's 7 people in North Dakota. Why would we go to this cold, frigid place? I'm not going there. So Zionism is the desire to have a homeland. Of course, where do they say? No, we want Jerusalem. We want to have our homeland where it has always been, which is Jerusalem. Do you guys know there's a place called the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem? Yeah. Do we have to stop? Bye. They're going to make me stop now. Malia. Bye.